welcome to The Trusted Advisor, a channel-focused podcast and video series powered by the Retail Solution Providers Association. I'm Jim Roddy, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us. This pod and video series is designed specifically for point-of-sale resellers and software developers, and our goal is to educate you on the topics of technology, leadership, management, sales, marketing, and other small business best practices. A quick note and a personal note. So for those of you who are faithful viewers of the Trusted Advisor on the RSPA YouTube channel, this will be the final installment in what I'm personally calling the Long Hair Chronicles. So we're recording this podcast on June 29th. And since March, Northwest Pennsylvania, where I live, Erie, Pennsylvania, barber shops have been closed because of the pandemic, but they're now open. And tomorrow morning, in 22 hours, I'll lose about a pound, I think, of my hair here, and I'll go back to being semi-presentable. Again, if you only listen to this podcast, you don't view it on YouTube, what I just said is kind of all extraneous information. So let's get to the important stuff today. Today on the podcast, we'll get to know new RSPA legal counsel, Jill Miller. Hi, Jill. Welcome to the pod and welcome to the RSPA.
Hello. How are you?
Wonderful. It's great to have you here. And so a little bit of background on Jill. She was named the RSPA's new legal counsel in January, and since then she's been working alongside longtime association legal counsel Bob Goldberg, who will retire in December 2020. Jill's a member of the Detroit-based law firm Bodman PLC, and she's chair of the firm's data privacy and security group. She's dedicated her legal career to representing entrepreneurs and companies that serve the retail vertical. Jill has experience working with established companies, startups, emerging companies. Many of them are VARs, ISVs, ISOs, card brands, and vendors in the retail IT channel. And as the RSPA's legal counsel, Jill provides members with legal advice, phone calls, and legal templates, all at no extra charge. So, Jill, we're glad to have you here on the podcast and really glad to have you as part of the RSPA.
Thanks again.
Wonderful. So the goal of this episode is for the RSPA members and VARs and ISVs and other organizations in the retail channel to get to know you better. So can you take us back to the start of your professional career? And what's interesting to me is you worked as a sales executive at Archway Marketing Services for 7 years, and the last 3 of those overlapped with attending law school at Michigan State. And so I'm curious how that experience, in a sales role, in a business role, shapes your perspective as an attorney today.
I was in my late 20s and I was thinking, if I win the lottery, I think I'll go to law school. And then I thought, you know what, you don't need to win the lottery, Jill, and you can just work and then commute up to Michigan State and earn your law degree. And so, I think working in the business world, that experience has just been so useful in regard to dealing with my clients and helping them. I really, in addition to providing legal advice and sort of black and white issues, there's so much gray in there. And I think my business experience certainly helps me to step into the shoes of my clients and think about things besides the heretofores and the whereas clauses and the recitals. And so while at Archway, had a really good chance to learn about client development, dealing with big corporate clients, but then also small clients, folks who, maybe had 1 or 2 employees. So it really gave me a good background. And as I stated, I commuted up to Michigan State in the evenings. And really just had a very full plate of working full time, going to school at night. And I think once I finally settled in at the law firm, I felt like I was working part time.
Right, because you had such a pace that was going on. Where were you commuting from?
I live in a suburb halfway between Detroit and Ann Arbor. And so I would drive about an hour up to Michigan State about 3 or 4 nights a week. And it was fine unless it was a big snowstorm. And then, it was a little more painful, but I managed through it.
Got it. And we run into those. Again, you're in Michigan, I'm in Northwest Pennsylvania. We get our snowstorms, no doubt about it.
Right.
Good. So can you talk about now the path from that starting point to where you are today? How did you advance from being a new attorney and then to today counseling clients on data privacy, cybersecurity, mobile payments, electronic fund transfers, and more? Talk about that path, please.
Yeah, so when you graduate from law school, there really isn't a sense of what kind of lawyer are you going to be. Really, I think most people go into a law firm, at least the path I took, go into a law firm, and I have an undergraduate degree in accounting, and then I had the law degree on top of that. And so I think the team at the law firm I joined thought, oh, she should be in finance. And so I was placed into a transactional group and started working with a partner there who was representing entrepreneurs in the electronic payment space. And once I figured out the industry, with all the nomenclature and the different terminology, I think about 6 months into it, I thought this really is something I'm very much interested in. One, because I was representing individuals whose legal dollars were coming out of their own pockets, and I really wanted to bring value and make them feel as though every penny they spent with me, they were getting worthwhile legal advice that could help their business. And so then I started attending a few trade shows and really fell in love with the kind of people who were so embracing of me, tried to make sure that I was introduced to other people. And, I attended Inspire in January, and that trade show was similarly situated in terms of people were so eager to embrace me, to take me around and introduce me to other members. The women's group reached out to me and invited me to come to a sort of on-the-spot luncheon that they had. People just really tried to bring me into the fold and make me feel like a part of the RSPA, which was really heartwarming and similar to my experience, in a few other organizations. So that's
Got
that.
Got it. And so just for those folks who aren't familiar with Inspire, that's the RSP's annual Winter Leadership Executive Conference. The one that was earlier this year was in the Bahamas, and next year, February 9th through 12th, slated for Hawaii. So always a good time at that event. And like you said, Jill, a very warm, open group. It's not like you have to be some veteran or part of some clique in order to be part of this industry. And I can say from my days, I've had new folks enter this space and they've gone to other trade shows and they say, man, this is such a friendly environment. And so it sounds like that's what you have experienced as well, in terms of that folks, have open arms and will open their brains as well, right? It's not just that they're friendly and then they'll keep everything to themselves. But like, I'm guessing if you can expand upon that, easy to have business conversations here that folks are open and looking for how they can improve their business.
No, I think that's right. I think people are, eager to share their knowledge, to share their network, to share their experiences, to share their insight, to share their friendships. I mean, that's what happens, I think, at these trade shows, especially I found at the RSPA, is that people were embracing me and saying, where's your husband and your daughter? I didn't bring them on that trip. But they really, they're trying to share their warmness and their inclusiveness, and which really, is the kind of person I am. And so it was really, I just realized in short order that the RSPA was certainly going to be a perfect fit for me personally, as well as for my legal experience.
Got it. I'm glad to hear that. Now, you also have experience assisting clients with responses to Visa and MasterCard notification requirements when a breach of a credit card information has occurred. Again, this is the less warm side of the business
Right.
that we're in. Can you give us kind of a behind-the-scenes look at that? What happens during those notifications? What role do you play? What role does the solution provider play? If you can walk our audience through how those typically go.
Yeah, so, data privacy and data breach really, are two sort of left and right-hand side of data. If you can have a data policy and procedures in place to protect as best you can information that is to be protected, that really gives you a head start in terms of how to handle a data breach. And the data breaches, I feel so terrible when they happen because you have an innocent company who has oftentimes an innocent employee who maybe potentially received an email thinking it was the CEO of the company when in fact it was a bad actor. I have a lot of tips and tricks about how to help companies train their employees on how to be maybe a little more alert because those poor employees, it's just one small mistake that could potentially cause a serious, problem for an entity. And so there's a whole procedure that is established with regard to when a breach happens. If it's card data, there's notifications required to Visa and MasterCard. There's also notifications to your processor, which are contractual. And then there's notification to the consumer. And that really, in the United States, it is governed by state law. There is no federal law that governs data breach notification. So in short order, it can be, it's really, when something happens, I'm immediately on the phone and immediately trying to sort of figure out what's happened. What information, is it really personally identifiable information? Is notification really required? And then just help walk through and give comfort to a company as they work through their obligations in the event a data breach occurs.
Got it. Great. And we're only going to touch on data privacy here today, again, because we want to get to know Jill a little bit better. But at the RSPA Academy Education Symposium, scheduled for August 26th and 27th, scheduled for day one, Jill's going to give a presentation about data privacy, CCPA implementation, and other state privacy laws. And again, the CCPA is the California Privacy Act, which is really driving, it seems like, a lot of other ones as well. So again, that'll be a tease for at some point in August. You want to make sure you register for that event. A lot of great education opportunities, including that presentation that Jill will be doing. So Jill, let's also talk about, you've worked a lot with the ETA and the SCAA. So veterans of the industry know what those are, but for those who don't, ETA is Electronic Transactions Association, SCAA Southeast Acquirers Association. Can you talk about what work have you done with those groups and how has that helped shape your perspective on our industry?
Well, the Electronic Transaction Association, the ETA, I was involved in very early in my career. I sat on committees, I sat through learning opportunities, really trying to understand all the nuances of the payments industry. And then from that, again, you build your network, you start to explore other associations that might be useful in your practice and in your network. And so I started the advisory committee. I'm on the advisory committee for the Southeast Acquirers Association, whereby I do a lot of work on the content for the sessions that are held at the trade show. We actually just did a virtual educational session for the membership. I find for me, I really like the intimacy of a show that has a trade show, has educational sessions. So you have a chance to really get to meet different people and to, sit down next to somebody that you might not ordinarily be exposed to, and just really get to know people. So while Retail Now is not happening this year, I really welcome the opportunity to get to know people and sit next to you, maybe 6 feet apart. I'm okay with that too. Just to really have that personal touch or elbow, and to just be in person together.
Got it. And it seems like a big part of what you kind of touched on there, of being part of these communities, is it's not a homogenous industry and everybody has their own different perspectives and their own different challenges. Is that how you see it? The more you're able to engage with these different groups, the varying perspectives you're able to get, and the better you can put yourself into the shoes of a reseller, an ISV, an ISO, a vendor. Am I seeing that the same way you are? Perspectives
Yeah.
hugely important to understand.
Yes, I mean, I've been working as a lawyer for 15 years. And I will tell you, from both the retail perspective and ISV, that just became a real big, in the electronic payments industry, it wasn't as such a huge player as it is now. I always say to people, the pie is so big. There's so many new players coming in. These entrepreneurs have such amazing ideas, so sophisticated in their analysis of what's next and how to best serve their merchants and their customers. And so for me, it's always a learning experience. I mean, every time I sit down to somebody, everybody's got a different twist on things, a different way in which they go to market, a different way in which they sell to their customers, a different way in which they manage their business. And as a lawyer, you hear all of this from so many different resources that you can help a large variety of people with their business because you've been exposed to a significant number of people. And that's, to me, I can't imagine not being part of an industry organization. To me, that's where the meat is. That's where the connections are. That's where the relationships are. I couldn't just sit in my office and, expand my network by reaching out on the phone. I mean, the trade shows for me have always just been so useful and so hitting on so many levels.
Yeah, I've always said I don't know of any problem in this industry that's been solved by somebody staring at the ceiling tiles. Right? Let me think what it could be. Eureka! I've got it. No, you've got to throw yourself out there and find
Right.
those different perspectives. And it sounds like what you're doing is a combination of you bring the legal advice and the legal expertise, and then also the more people you talk with, you have those perspectives. You're able to combine those together and give appropriate guidance. Am I understanding that correctly? Like that's the difference between just somebody calling up any attorney as opposed to working with you or what Bob Goldberg has done for many years, somebody who has their own legal perspective, but then also the perspectives and the experience of others specifically for this industry.
Right. And I mean, and Bob, having practiced and represented the association for so many years, I'm not sure of the number. It's, 30, 32, 35. I mean, really, it's just so significant. And he has shared with me his experiences, his documents, what he gives to the membership, how he delivers legal services, and I think one of our very early conversations was, how do we serve the membership? And that's really what I've learned in the board meeting back in Inspire, and through Bob's leadership and guidance with me. It's really how best to serve and provide value to a membership. I mean, that is something I hadn't heard so in such a repetition from other associations. So it's really always in my mind as I'm thinking about delivering legal services. How can I add more value?
Got it. Wonderful. Well, let's pause here for a moment to let our listeners and viewers know that an RSPA membership has never been more valuable or affordable. The RSPA has expanded its VAR and ISV member benefits to include discounts on health insurance, HR services, office supplies, and shipping. Also, RSPA members have access to a legal advisor. No surprise if you've been paying attention to the first 15 minutes of this podcast. Also access to a security advisor and a VAR and ISV business advisor. That's all included in your annual RSPA membership, which for resellers starts at just $250 a year. That's 68 cents a day for these high value services. Accelerate your success by joining the RSPA today. Also, thank you to our sponsors who support the RSPA community and make this podcast and video series possible. Our platinum sponsors are Blue Star, Heartland, ScanSource, and Shift4 Payments. And then finally, in response to the COVID-19 crisis, the RSPA has launched the RSPA Solution Center, a new online platform designed to introduce VARs and ISVs to innovative solutions and connect them with the providers of these solutions. You'll find product details, videos, white papers, case studies, channel executive contact information, and more. To grow your channel business, Google RSPA Solution Center today, or you can visit the RSPA website at gorspa.org. And finally, to receive the benefits of an RSPA membership or RSPA sponsorship, email membership@gorspa.org. So we touched on, all those different benefits, so you can see why a reseller would be attracted to the association, or an ISV, or a vendor. Why was it attractive to you? Why was the RSPA community, the RSPA legal counsel, something that you found compelling and made you want to work with RSPA members?
I think it's the membership makeup. It's really the kind of people and the kind of companies that I have represented historically through my career. I felt as though some of my specific expertise in payments would be helpful. But, I am a general counsel. I mean, people might have historically come to me for maybe a payments concern or a software issue or a hardware issue. But in short order, you just become a general counsel. You start answering any questions that an entrepreneur or a vendor might have. And so I felt as though the membership was right up my alley and something in an organization where I could add value. And of course, the board, having met some of those folks individually over the years, again, they just sort of that instinct tells you that these are good people. John Kirk is just somebody who, you can only aspire to be a leader like him. And so, those things combined, I think, really it piqued my interest in representing the RSPA.
Got it. And the RSPA wasn't completely foreign to you, right? Like it seemed like
No.
you had as with a lot of folks in the industry and the
Oh, yes. Yeah.
reputation.
Yes. And when I became general counsel, many of the folks in my circle were like, yay for you! Like, RSPA is such a great organization. And I've heard that for years. And I've, talked to clients while they've been at trade shows. And of course, a lot of the content on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And so, yes, I had certainly been exposed to the RSPA for years prior to joining as part of the team.
Got it. Well, I can say I've had a similar experience with you. So I've been involved in the RSPA as a volunteer for, I don't know, 16 years now, something like that. But I just joined a little bit over a year ago as a full-time employee. And it does give you solace when people say, congratulations, great organization, what a great move, opposed to, are you crazy? Like, why did you,
Right.
why did you
You
join
should have talked to
Forge?
me first.
Exactly. So I'm glad we both had that shared experience. So
Yeah.
also when you were announced in the press release, you said that you pride yourself on providing practical business focused advice. Can you talk about how important that is for SMB VARs and ISVs? You've alluded to some of those smaller companies earlier, because their attorney needs to really help them solve problems, not to share information or go all philosophical on them.
No, and I think that helping a smaller company, really, they have less resources on their management team, and so they need another person with whom they can trust, who has an understanding of their business. Again, just providing and reviewing a contract, any lawyer can do that, but to have knowledge about an industry, to have knowledge about what's important in our industry contracts. There's where the value is. Or again, having reviewed an agreement on behalf of 16 other similarly situated companies, while all the changes, it's not like as a lawyer you just take a contract and duplicate every change. It depends on the customer. I don't negotiate against myself. If I, historically, if I've, done a negotiation and I didn't get something previously, I don't say, oh, I'm not going to try that, because I think it's important. And for this particular client, we might get that particular issue. And so, again, my clients and the RSPA will get the benefit of what I've seen over and over and over again, as opposed to just, being a corporate lawyer who works in the medical field, for example.
Mm-hmm. Right, or just general business. And I know that's one thing is when I talk with folks who are outside this industry, you forget kind of how complex this industry
Yeah.
can be and how unique it is, how just the whole indirect channel really makes it a challenge.
And that's what makes me feel so good. And I feel like I can give useful and relevant advice. I feel like when I look at something, many of my people I work with are like, "Whoa, I never thought of that," and I'm just like, "Yes, I did think of that," because it's something I'd been exposed to before, or I've had I've thought about it and pondered on it, and know, like you said, sort of the structure of the industry and how payments are made and how sales forces are utilized, and something as simple as, I'll say to someone, "How many sales reps do you have?" "We have 100. I'm like, "How many produce?" "4." And so these are things that you just know from being in the industry.
Got it. Very good. Well, and so let's talk about some things you've learned. So as of today's recording, you've been on the job about 5 or 6 months, working with members alongside Bob Goldberg. I guess just to clarify, virtually alongside Bob Goldberg, because it hasn't been an elbow to elbow kind of thing. So what are some of your early observations? Working with Bob, not just I'm talking about him, but about what you're running into, what you're seeing as RSPA legal counsel. What are some of those early observations you can share?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I find that the membership is really gracious. I feel like they're not coming to us with, their hair's on fire and you've got to help me now. Or I think they're very gracious. I think that there's a lot of questions about contracts. Um, and I think that, we have a good library of resources to assist with that. In the last few months, as you know, COVID-19 has been so prevalent. I mean, Bob has provided a wealth of information about the PPP loans, the PPE, how to manage employees, how to deal with quarantine. And, sometimes too, people will ask a question that's really not in the member benefit. But if it's an easy, quick answer, I mean, I feel like Bob's going to give, and he has guided me to give as much as we can. We're trying to give the best service we can. I mean, obviously we can't help someone with a transaction, but we're trying to give as much as we can fairly, and to give the membership confidence in moving forward with a relationship or with an employee issue. So I found that, people are respectful of our time. If you think about what am I getting in return, I think people have been very respectful of my time. People have been fair in, sort of the timeline to get back to them. People have sophisticated questions. People aren't, asking things that are not relevant or not important. So I think it's been a really good first 6 months, and thankfully Bob isn't leaving. He's here now as we switch roles. I will now be the initial point of contact July 1st, and he will be the secondary point of contact. But he's promised me that he will always be a phone call away even after December. So I'm hopeful I can have a good handle, but you don't want to lose a resource completely, and he's certainly not just closing the door and saying good
Yeah.
luck. So.
Yeah, is there anything like I said, talking, and so thank you for that answer, but like any personal observations of Bob? Because one thing I've said from getting to know him over the years, if I was ever in a courtroom and representing the other side, I saw Bob Goldberg coming in, I'd be like, I'm settling. What do I have to do? And I say that as a compliment to him, because when he has a conviction on something, he's really driving it home and has been a staunch defender of this industry and of the resellers. I guess, what have you taken away from maybe like an attitude or approach to things that you've been able to see up close and personal with Bob for these past several months? And especially, you've had a lot of cycles with COVID. It wasn't like nothing was going on from a legal standpoint. All sorts
Right.
of information, all sorts of engagements. If you can share that observation.
He's a great lawyer, right? I mean, the knowledge that he has and the perspective that he has is just, that doesn't come overnight. That comes with, years of experience and commitment and interest and devotion. And, that's what he has based his career on. He has such a good way with words. He's so, in some of the email communications, sometimes he'll send something back and I'll think, oh, I'm never going to be able to compete with that, right? But we're very different, and I'll never be a Bob Goldberg. But maybe I'll steal some of his catchphrases in the future. But he just has a lot of respect. He gives respect and he gets respect, and he's been working with a few other partners in my firm on a few other matters, and he's just, everybody's impressed with both he and John. They just, they're just two class acts with the highest degree of integrity and dedication to the RSPA. So can you imagine going into a new job and taking it from someone who you thought was a jerk or something? Like, how terrible would that be? But no, it's been like a really great, positive experience.
Wonderful. I'm glad it's been a great start for you. So before we wrap up, final question that we like to ask all our guests. Can you recommend for our listeners and our viewers a book to read or a podcast to listen to that would help them in their journey to become either better leaders or run a stronger organization? What resource would you recommend outside of calling the RSPA legal hotline, of course?
Right. I was, a couple of, like one book I think about that helped me, and it wasn't necessarily a business book. It was a personal book, and it was called Smart Women Finish Rich. And the reason I found that book to be useful is it really helped to sort of, as a younger person, figure out how to manage my finances. And as a result, I wasn't stressed about other things, right? And so just as a person, you think about things that are stressful. Money is a big part of people's lives. And so for me, and then I ended up, when I met my husband, bought the Smart Couples Finish Rich to train him too. But I'll tell you, it just made me think about how that particular resource in my life, it made me a less stressed, and I felt a more responsible adult. And now, 15 years later, I'm getting closer to the retirement part of the, as opposed to the beginning part of my financial and business career. I'm glad I did something about it years ago.
Got it. So, okay, smart winners finish rich, but I can say, Jill, you cannot start talking retirement now, right? Like, you're replacing Bob's who's retiring. We can't have you talk about retirement.
15
maybe
years.
For another, 15 years? Okay, we'll give you 15. Maybe we'll push it to 20
Okay.
as it goes on. So, got it. Well, thank you for that. And finally, how can RSPA members connect with you to discuss their legal issues? If they want more, how can an RSPA member connect with you?
So you can reach me at my email address, which is jmiller@bodmanlaw.com. Not just Bodman. My husband sends emails to the wrong email address, so I'm going to say it once again. I'm like, Mike, it's jmiller@bodmanlaw.com. And, I think that's the best way to get a hold of me, just because with, in office, home office, out of office, and of course, you've got your email and your phone. I'm happy to respond, and would, be delighted to assist in any way that you think I could be helpful.
Wonderful. And again, if you're an RSPA member and you do that, you're not going to get an invoice on the other end of it. And if you're not an RSPA member and you want to connect with Jill, you got to become a member first. So shoot a note over to membership@gorspa.org. Well, that's all the time that we have. We hope you enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, be sure to subscribe to the RSPA YouTube channel and the Trusted Advisor podcast so you never miss an episode. We'd also appreciate it if you'd rate us wherever you find your favorite podcast. My personal philosophy, the more stars, the better. And if you'd like to learn more best practices for VARs and ISVs in the point of sale channel, you can check out the RSPA blog. You can find it at gorspa.org and then clicking on RSPA blog. Before we go, thanks again to Jill Miller for sharing her wisdom with us today, and thank you for joining the RSPA, Jill. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks to RSPA Marcom manager Chris Arnold for his production work, Joseph McDade for our music, and last but not least, thanks so much to you for listening and watching. Our goal at the RSPA is to accelerate the success of our members in the point-of-sale ecosystem by providing knowledge and connections. For more information, visit our website at gorspa.org. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, everybody.